Today we're making a beautiful flatbread. And I'm gonna take you on a journey. We're gonna make love. I'm gonna keep it very simple. Let's start with the pickled peppers. People overcomplicate it. Let's relax and just understand it's hot liquid poured over vegetables. That's it. I've got vinegar and water. They both look the same, obviously. Add some granulated sugar, and I have a ton of different aromatics, spices, something that's gonna provide some body. Salt, something that's very neglected in the world of pickling. People think, oh, you just need a little bit of vinegar, a little bit of sugar. What about the salt? Balance, hello. Mustard seeds, whole peppercorns, cumin seeds, dill seeds, fennel seeds, coriander seeds. All those have previously been toasted. It's gonna go on the stove. We're gonna crank that on high heat. While we're waiting for that to boil, we're gonna cut our chilies. I have 3 different kinds of peppers. I have shishito, I have jalapeno, and I have Hungarian wax peppers. You can use any mix you want. I like the wax peppers because I think they look good. These are obviously already cut. They're not spicy, they're lightly sweet. They have some nice bitter qualities to them that I really enjoy. So I'm gonna cut them about a little bit, I wanna say, what is that? I'm not very good at measuring or math. Let's say a little bit under a ½ an inch thick. Fun little technique whenever I'm cutting peppers or chilies like this is they can be a little bit annoying to do one at a time. So what I like to do is I'll stack them all next to each other like this. And assuming your knife is sharp enough, you should be able to cut them like that. So now you're chopping at the same level of speed, but you're getting triple the result. Chop, 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 chop. Now look, you can use really any heat-proof container, right? I would advocate against using any sort of stainless steel just because you got acid sitting in this for a long period of time. So try to find heat-proof, high-quality glass. You can use a mason jar, you can use a weck jar, whatever you got on hand, just make sure it's heat-proof. Josh, what happens if it's not heat-proof? Well, it could explode. It could explode. I've got my Hungarian wax peppers. You can also use banana peppers, that's totally fine. Oh, I forgot to chop my jalapeno. And half of them are on the floor. That's awesome. We're gonna add my jalapenos in there. So essentially we have 1 pepper for spice, which is the jalapeno. We have another pepper for flavor and another pepper for flavor and texture, right? I think this is a great trio. See that? Look, you can even see the percentage that we have each in there. Probably should have worn gloves when I did this. I'm excited to rub my eyes later or potentially go to the bathroom. That's the best surprise. So I'm just gonna give it a light stir to make sure everything's getting dissolved. Just wanna bring it up to a rolling boil and then immediately stop it. Does this taste good though? Oh, always taste your pickle liquid just a little bit on your tongue. Make sure it's to your liking. This is your one moment to change that. Because once it goes in that jar, not much you can do. We're at a boil, right? You can see little bubbles. You can cut the heat off at that point. Hopefully this doesn't explode. Just kidding, it won't. You pour your hot liquid directly on top of your chilies. And you're gonna go until it's completely covered with that liquid. When I say completely, I mean completely. I will say one fun little thing that happened by doing it this way is the spices kind of act as a barrier to the rest of the liquid, so it's keeping everything submerged. Was this planned? No. Did this work? Yes. We're doing it live, baby. You know the pickling process is done once it's fully cooled. So we're gonna set this to the side, let it cool off. I'm doing a Mortadella chili oil. Szechuan chili flakes. We have a little bit of, what is this? Chinese black vinegar. You can use Xinjiang vinegar. There's all sorts of different kinds you could use, but generally speaking, you wanna look for Chinese black vinegar. It's not like what you would think. You know, like a white distilled or rice vinegar is very sharp. It's very acidic. And this is acidic, but it's also got it's got very dark, almost like molasses-like notes to it. It's a little bit of sweetness to it. It's very special. We have a beautiful dark soy sauce, very dark. I mean, this looks like the eclipse. I don't know what I'm saying. Very finely chopped green onion. And last, what is this? A light soy sauce. You don't have to add this, but God, do I love it. MSG. There's nothing wrong with it, okay? Just get over your fear and open your life to happiness. We all wanna be happy, right? And it's legal. Just doesn't look like it is. Before we get started on this, there's 2 elements we need to worry about. Number 1, we have a little bit of vegetable oil. You can use whatever oil you want. Just make sure it's neutral. It could be canola oil. It could be avocado oil. It needs to be something that's liquid at room temperature, can sustain high heat, and has neutral flavor. That's it. I don't care how much money you spend on it. Go sell stem cells for it for all I care. I don't care. Just make sure it's neutral. So into a small pot. This is the smallest one we have, all right? It's a little big. So that's gonna go on the stove. But before I turn that on, let's talk about mortadella. The type of mortadella that you get matters. And when I say it matters, I mean, it should look like this. See this? That is mortadella. I would honestly suggest that you only do it with just white pork fat, no pistachios, because we're gonna be cooking this down and the pistachios will burn. We're gonna add them later. This feels like a quarter pound right here. I feel like I'm handling money. Something about mortadella, I just feel like this is like a stack of cash, you know? Just like, listen, I just like, no? Where the did my knife go? Hang on. This mortadella is gonna get chopped super finely and then cooked down. The way I would do it is I would split this guy in half, fold those halves together, and then sort of like roll it up nice and tight. So then what you're gonna get when you cut it, has anyone ever chiffonade mortadella? This might be the first time we've seen mortadella chiffonade. And what you're gonna get is really thin strips. But we're not gonna stop there. This is just gonna help speed up the fine chopping process. You can fine chop things a million different ways. I'm a big fan of trying to make it as fast and simple as possible so we can get to the cooking. So we have our chiffonade. We've already cut it this way. Now we're gonna cut it this direction, all right? And that's gonna leave you with nice little tiny pieces. Then after you've done that, we're gonna bring that together. We're just gonna run our knife through a couple times. It doesn't have to be perfect because all this is gonna shrink down when it goes in the pan. But just run through. A lot of chefs will do it like this. But if you put your hand more towards the center, you end up with more of a rocking motion like this. You chop twice as fast, basically. A lot of you might know this, but I worked at a restaurant called Uchiko. It's a Japanese restaurant, fine dining. There's a condiment called yuzu kosho, and it's a finely chopped citrus and chili paste. And so what we would do is we would take 300 goddamn lemons and limes, zest all of them completely. You couldn't put the zest in a food processor or a blender because it wouldn't get it to the consistency that you wanted it. So we would hand chop all of that zest until it was fine as humanly possible. Some people would chop this quite literally for almost an hour doing this. So we had to adapt. And if you can't chop fast, God bless. You're Now we need to cook this down nice and evenly, and we need a nice and even heat to do that. You could do that on the stove, but come on, got the new Arc XL. Think we're gonna put that in the stove? We're going in the oven. Even that out, and we're gonna go cook this down just until it's super brown, essentially until it's rendered all of its fat out, reduced all the moisture out, it's browned and crispy. Let's do that. We got our mortadella in the pan. We've got our Gozney Arc. I'm just gonna let this guy kind of sit off to the back. I don't want it too hot. I want low heat. I want to just brush it with the flame. Let that fat render out. Even with this being in there for like 30 seconds, you can already see the fat sort of starting to glisten. Mortadella is really good. If you've never had mortadella, you're missing out on about 25% of the joy that exists in life. Mortadella is the grown-up version of bologna in a way. It's tender, it's fatty, it's rich, it's salty. It's sort of like the perfect deli meat, if you will. Okay, so you can see, you can hear the mortadella starting to crisp up. It's smelling amazing. It smells salty, it smells porky, it smells meaty. Sort of letting it render, stirring it, bringing it together, dispersing that heat nice and evenly. All right, you can see this starting to turn transparent. It's like quite literally melting in the pan. This kind of like browns, kind of like prosciutto does. Yeah. Oh, it's almost there. So you can kind of see how it's almost turning like this dark reddish, borderline, beautifully caramelized brown. Yeah, see, so it's like literally water escaping the mortadella. So this is done. We're gonna take this out and I'm gonna drain this on a paper towel. Nice, crunchy base for your chili oil. Okay, so we have our cooked down mortadella. Look at this. It's almost like a combination between some sort of whimsical spice and honestly like crispy baked potato bacon. But it's more than that, right? You can crush this up and it gets even finer. Listen to this. I'm getting this. That's crazy. I've got my vegetable oil here, which I'm just gonna start heating over a medium-ish flame. In this bowl, we're gonna basically combine everything. So we have our mortadella, that's gonna go in, green onion, our Szechuan chili flakes. And by the way, you can use other kinds of chili flakes. If you don't have Szechuan chili flakes, that's totally fine. You could use red pepper flakes. It won't have quite the same flavor, but it will apply the spice that you're looking for and the red color, which I think is really important. I'm just gonna kind of break this up and get that incorporated. Yeah, I mean, it smells insane. And if you do that, be sure to rub your eyes afterwards too. I'm then gonna sprinkle in my MSG, which you can call many names, Daddy's favorite powder, my light soy, my Chinese black vinegar, and then dark soy, sort of deep, unctuous, molasses-like flavors, some umami, some fermented qualities. some acidity. It's super duper balanced, but it is quite salty in a good way. Okay, we're gonna do a little temp check on this bad boy. We're at like 217. We'll let this heat up just a little bit more. Sometimes cooking is a test of patience. Oh, 330. Hold on. 333. My oil's at 350 Fahrenheit. It's hot. It's right about where I want it. You could take it a little bit more if you wanted to. I'm happy with that temperature. So I'm gonna cut off my heat and immediately and carefully, I will say very carefully, you're gonna pour this over here. When I say carefully, I mean it can sputter a little bit. That's it, all right? So we're going on top, nice and quick. Just like that. Stir that, get it nice and integrated. I like to keep whisking just to get everything incorporated decently before I let this live on its own. This is pretty much ready to go right away. I like to let it sit for like 10, 15 minutes just to absorb that flavor, get nice and red. The oil is essentially a diffused version of the crisp that's at the bottom. So when you do pour this on, you want a little bit of both the oil and the crisp, which we'll see in a second. We're gonna make a little herb salad. Very basic herb salad, just fresh basil, fresh dill. You don't need a lot, you just need a few leaves of each. I've got a small bowl here. I'm just gonna pick the leaves of the basil. If the leaves are a little big like this, I like to split them in half. That way everything's a little evenly sized, so you don't get like one giant leaf and then one tiny leaf. All right, and then I've got some fresh dill here. You can add as much or as little as you want. If you wanna do mostly dill and just a little bit of basil, cool. You wanna do a lot of basil and a little bit of dill, that's fine too. Do it to your taste. Maybe you hate dill and basil. That's a great time to inform yourself to potentially just not do either. I got my nice little herb salad and I'm just gonna gently toss it together. I'm just letting the herbs kind of pick them up and let them fall down on each other. And then you're left with a nice, beautiful, fragrant herb salad. God damn, it smells good. You ever smell something and it smells so good you almost want to cough? You smell it and you're like kind of getting choked up. You're like, ugh! You know, it's hitting. There's something in there.
Mace.
Yeah, mace. Even if you're like getting maced by the police? How often does that happen to you? Gozney goes hard. They don't f around. They will get maced and they will keep going. It's a very basic dough. It's mostly all-purpose flour and just a touch of whole wheat flour. Why the whole wheat flour? First of all, flavor. It's gonna add a little bit of earthiness. It's gonna add a little bit of texture, but it also adds a little bit of absorbency. So you can put more liquid in this dough without it getting too sticky, but retaining a lot of moisture when you bake it. Because I like it moist. Moist. So we have those two flours going together. Just mix them nicely. And then I'm gonna add my salt. Oh, wah, salt is gonna slow down the fermentation. Wow, thank you, Einstein. That's exactly what I wanted to happen. I have a lot of aggression towards the audience today. I don't know what's going on. Right, so we have our flour mixture here. We've got water, which I'm just gonna add a touch of instant yeast. You can use fresh yeast, you could use sourdough starter, you could use a mix. Honestly, I don't like sourdough for this recipe. I just want a very light, yeasty flavor that's gonna get this to rise really quickly in the oven. I do this all by hand, so you're just gonna dump your water in and mix, just like that. Bring it together, it'll start as a shaggy dough. Yes, it's gonna be sticky at first, just trust me here, okay? Now this dough's gonna feel a little stickier than the typical dough that you see, right? You're like, oh, it's sticking to my hands, what do I do? Relax, stay calm, just knead it. It'll start to come together. Depending on the flour you use, it may be stickier. What do? Do something called the roux-bade method. You're gonna form your hand kind of like a cupping shape, and you're gonna scoop underneath that dough and slap it down. And you're gonna do that repeatedly. It's gonna look really weird. It's gonna look real weird. If you can't see what's going on down here, you don't wanna know. It's mimicking the arm of a commercial mixer. So it's a great way to add strength and gluten development in a dough that might be a little more hydrated than you're personally used to, and that's okay, because this will still get the kneading job done. You can also do some slap folds, so you just slap it down, fold it over itself. This dough isn't so hydrated that you need to do this a ton. You can see it's already kind of like not sticking. But again, if you're not used to working with doughs like this is a great way to develop it. I mean, honestly, at this stage, you can just knead it. See, many ways to develop gluten, fellas. Once you've got some smoothness, you can also window pane test it. It should stretch just to the point of being able to see through it without it tearing. Back into our bowl, I'm gonna lightly grease it. Shape this into a taut ball. This is our dough. It's got a very small amount of yeast in it. It will have ample time to rise slowly and develop flavor. So we're gonna cover this up, put it in the fridge overnight. Next day, your dough comes out. It's okay if it deflates a little bit. That just means it's risen to its maximum and the gluten's beginning to relax. It'll still do its job. So you're gonna punch down that air and remove your dough. It's nice and yeasty. So you're gonna divide this into multiple pieces. This dough should get around 4 good sized pieces, but the real thing you wanna look for is consistency. So we're going by the gram, 220 grams each is what we're looking for. It's 215, I'll take that. That's close enough for me. 220, perfect. Then my other quarter. Boom, 208. Oh, that's a little too high. Okay, so we have 4 evenly sized pieces. Look at that. Now each of these is gonna get shaped into a light ball. So you're gonna take in your sides, pull them in so you have, while constantly keeping contact with the board, roll the ball around in circles. And you can sort of see that I'm essentially pulling the dough into itself. And over time, as you're doing this, you get a nice, tight ball. You're gonna need a proofing box. You can use a sheet tray. You can use you just need a surface, okay? I'm gonna sprinkle that lightly with some flour, all purpose, whatever flour you got. We have our dough balls and just kind of like evenly separate them. Since we have 4, we'll go kind of like this. Give them a little bit of space, like that. Cover it up and let this proof at room temperature for about 2 to 4 hours, right? Going past 4 hours, I would put them back in the fridge at that stage. Then we will shape and bake. We're ready to take our dough, cook it, assemble it, and eat it. So let's do that. All right, so we have our dough. Look at that, dude. Ooh, that's exactly what I was talking about, man. I'm getting choked up over here. I want to cough. Our dough's rested. It's proofed. It's gentle. It's full of air, which we're now going to punch the shit out of. We're going to dust the one that we want, separate them out, plop that onto our counter. So I'm dusting it pretty generously. You're going to flatten this to be completely flat and even across the whole thing. There's no border in this. It's almost more like a calzone. If you want to make it easier, you could even roll it out just a hair. This is not a pizza. This is a flatbread. You almost want it in a bit of a fat football shape, if that makes sense. American football, that is, to clarify. You want it thin, but not too thin. I would say in between a 1/4 inch and an 1/8 inch. What is that? A 3/8? I'll call it an 1/8 of an inch. We want an 1/8 of an inch thick. This isn't really a football either. What is this? What shape is this? A bean? Once it's flat, you're gonna get a little bit of olive oil, and you're gonna hit one side of that, and then the other side. Using 2 fingers, kind of rub that around. Now, the reason that we're doing this is so it doesn't seal, right? And then we're gonna fold it over. Let me take it to the oven. This looks like a weapon. This isn't a pizza peel. This is a weapon of flavor. Actually, let me flour this guy just so it's extra slippy. Slide it onto your peel. Perfect. Let's pop them in the oven. Yeah, we're going outside. We got our beautiful Arc XL. Just gonna slide it in and just let it do the magic, you know? We don't need to overthink this. Life is simple. Gonna give you a smooch, dude. Look at that. You know, it's like, put mortadella in me. Oh, nah, that's a little weird. Oh yeah. I'm just gonna get the other side. I want a little more char on the lips, okay? A little kiss on the lips, if you will. All right, and she's done. Look at that. A little bit of char on the edge, ready to receive some filling. Let's fill this guy up. We've got our mortadella. We've got a little bit of burrata. So I'm gonna split the burrata up a little bit. I'm gonna start with some burrata inside while it's nice and hot and steaming and burning my hands. Okay, very nice, just like that. Just gonna add just a touch of flaky salt to season the inside, just a little bit. All right, then we have our mortadella. You can add this however you want. If you wanna like kind of just pile it up and toss it in there, you can do that. You can also fold it like that, fold in half again, in half again. Boom, load it up. Just make it look nice. You know, you don't even have to get this fancy with it if you don't want to. You could just throw it in there like a sandwich, that's fine. And so what I've done is I've left just a little bit of room on top. So first of all, got my pickle peppers from earlier. We're gonna add a little bit more burrata. I'm gonna gently cut it. Screw it, sometimes your hands are just better. A little messy, that's okay. What you really want is you want some of that nice fresh stracciatella. So I've got my chilies pickled and nice. And just kind of add them as you see fit. Earlier I was complaining about not straining the spices out of this. In not doing that, you get little kind of pops of flavor here and there. If you bite into a mustard seed or you bite into a little coriander seed, that's Kind of nice. I'm into that. Now, what about that chili oil you made earlier, huh? Got all this flavor in here. Drizzle across the top. I want those crispy bits in there. So I'm starting with mostly crispy bits. Once I have the crispy bits to my liking, I'm then gonna take a little bit of that oil and just drizzle it right over the top like that. Finishing touch, we got our little herb salad. So we got our basil, our dill. You could hypothetically use fennel if you wanted to use fennel. I think that would be nice too. You know, play with it, have fun. You also, like I said, don't have to do the herbs. Now, if you want to add anything else, the last thing I would recommend is some finely crushed pistachios, just a little bit. Little extra crunch, little extra depth of flavor. And that is a flatbread. Good God, and it smells good. I want to eat this thing. God, look at this, dude. We know how to eat a taco, okay? All right, you go all the way down that way. Or if you're serving people, you want to give this to multiple people, you could cut it. Yours might not have your name on it. Sucks. The way I would cut this is I would first cut it in half. So we'll cut it in half again, then again. And so you essentially have little mini sandwiches. So you can serve this to multiple people. You can eat it by yourself. I'm not judging you. But look at this. You got mortadella, you got your burrata, pickles, crunchy pistachios, spicy chili oil. It's salty, it's fatty. Cheers. Unreal. Here's what I'm getting. Number one, dough matters. You need a good dough. Any pizza dough, even if it's not our recipe, will work for this recipe. That's what's beautiful about it. You want a high hydration pizza dough. It's just like the yeasty, chewy, almost pizza-like bread. It's fragrant. And then immediately you get this creamy burrata, a little bit of sensation of hot and cold. It's immediately salty, but it's also very balanced. I know there's a lot of like fatty elements to this, but it's extremely balanced thanks to the pickled peppers, which are fragrant, they're spiced, they're lightly tangy, not too much. It's not like in your face. And then to finish it all off, you've got the salty, spicy umami, chili oil, chili crisp on top, the little finishing herbaceousness. This is a beautifully perfect bite. Every time I do this and I have moments like this, my first thought is, why did I share this with everybody? I could have like put this in my restaurant. Don't you think that would have made more sense, Josh? So that does it today with a beautiful flatbread that you can make at home, take it away, enjoy it. But don't forget, subscribe to the Gozney channel. Get yourself a Gozney Arc XL if you haven't gotten it, or just the Arc, they're amazing. And you can get this recipe on their website. The link should be in the description. Please have a beautiful day, which would be made significantly more beautiful if you had this flatbread. Love you. Bye.